Welcome to Complete BS, the official podcast of couch coaches everywhere. Not just football. It's every sport that ruins your parlay, wrecks your fantasy week, and still brings you back for more. Buzzer beaters, blown leads, and brackets in flames. Yeah, we're all over it. Unfiltered takes, armchair analysis, and enough bold opinions to fill a playbook. Hosted by Brien Schmauch, sports junkie, the Saban of stats, and your official voice of I could coach better than that. Let's go.
Couch Coach Nation, how are we doing? Week 4 is in the books. There were a lot of teams off this week, but college football always delivers. There were some really good games like Auburn and Oklahoma, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Michigan at Nebraska was a really good game. The game of the day, though, I think was Arkansas and Memphis. What a fun game to watch. 1-point game, came down to the wire. It had offense, good defense. It was a really enjoyable game. The one game that I was really looking forward to that didn't deliver for me was Tulane at Ole Miss. Tulane, I think, forgot that there was a game, and this was over by halftime. Ole Miss didn't miss a beat again with Austin Simmons out for the second straight week. Trinidad Chambliss stepped up and just lit everybody up. AV, what are your impressions for week 4?
Yeah, week 4 was good. There's always college football always delivers, man. There's always good games to watch. If the game you're not watching is good, then flip to one of the other 50 games that's on, right? So nowadays we have access to every game. I didn't feel like the marquee games lived up to it, in my opinion. You had Illinois, Indiana, which we'll get into, but that was a blowout. Miami, Florida, there just wasn't a whole lot of offense going on, even though it was a close game in the third quarter. You mentioned the Arkansas-Memphis game. That was a great game to watch. I also thought Arizona State and Baylor was a great back-and-forth game to watch. Oklahoma, Auburn delivered. So, yeah, there's always fun, man. It's always fun in college football season. It's just a matter of finding the ones that are good.
Before we get into our games that we previewed on Friday, I've got to address my preseason national champion. It's been a complete embarrassment so far. Clemson, I picked you to win it all. You got elite players all over the field. And Dabo, you want to get upset over fans and media talking about job security for you, and that left you crying on the sideline. You lost again. You brought in Tom Allen to fix the defense, and your defense is ranked 10th in points allowed. Not in the country, in the ACC. You're ranked 11th in yards allowed in the ACC. Let's look at the offensive coaches. You've got Garrett Riley listed as the offensive coordinator, but his best attribute is his last name, and he's been completely ineffective as an offensive coordinator. Cade Klubnik has not gotten better as a quarterback, and he's the quarterback's coach. Both your running backs coach and your wide receivers coaches have run game and pass game coordinator titles attached to them. Their best attribute is they played for you at Clemson. Your tight end coach has a co-offensive coordinator title, but before that, he was a high school football coach. Matt Luke also carries a co-offensive coordinator title. He's the most accomplished coach on your offensive staff. But you really need to fire Garrett Riley because your offense is pathetic. You don't have anybody on your roster, though, that can call an offensive play. So you're kind of stuck with Riley. Defensively, Tom Allen, he comes in, but all the other coaches on the defensive staff were there before, so he doesn't bring in any guys that know what he's looking for out of the roster, what he's looking for schematically, how he wants to see a game, how he's viewing things. He doesn't have any of his own guys. You've got more former players with additional coordinator titles. Dabo, this is on you. You insulated yourself in a bubble of yes men and rewarded them with title. Dabo, the Clemson fans should be pissed off. You've done this. The next 2 games are on the road against a bad UNC team and Boston College. You should win these 2 games because they're not very good. After Boston College, you should be 3-3. And then you've got SMU and Duke before Florida State and Louisville. The SMU and Duke games are huge for you because these are teams with really bad defenses, but they can score. You're going to have to put up points in this game and outscore them. But I don't know that you can do that. If you don't win those games against SMU and Duke, you're going to lose the locker room, and the NFL caliber talent that you have on your roster are just going to say, I've had enough. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to protect my investment because I'm going to the league rather than play for a losing team and a losing coach. Dabo, if you don't like being questioned for your failures and being held accountable, you should pack it in and leave. Don't get upset with the media and fans for questioning you. This is all on you. You're the head coach. You're accountable for this disaster. The buck stops with you. I had to rant. AB, you've got anything to add? Feel free.
That was beautiful. First of all, it's really confusing how they can be this bad with all that talent. They have All-American and NFL types all over the field. So it's super confusing to me. The thing that puts Dabo in a bad spot is he's quick to change coordinators. I don't know if quick is the right word, but he's willing to. A couple of years ago, he fired, Brandon Streeter, and brought in Garrett Riley. And then when Venables left, I forget the guy's name, but he was an analyst on staff that he brought in. And then he got rid of him after 2 years and brings in Tom Allen. At some point, it's not the coordinators. When you keep going through coordinators as if that's the problem and you still get the same result, then, all the fingers start to point to the head guy because he's the one setting the tone there. I do think that they're going to blow the doors off their next 2, maybe even 4 opponents. But if he doesn't, it's going to get really weird in Clemson.
He'll win the next 2 games because they're not good football teams. SMU and Duke, they can score. They can put 40 points on. And the way this Clemson defense is playing, Clemson's going to have to score. This is a Dabo issue. This is a culture issue. This is Dabo not adjusting to football in 2025. Dabo thinks he's still playing in 1985 football. And it's ridiculous. Yeah, he made coordinator changes. He brings in a coordinator, but he doesn't let the coordinator bring in any of his own people. He's insulated with former players that are just, yes, Dabo, whatever you say, you're the best, Dabo, you got it. Everything you say is correct and right. He brings in Tom Allen. Tom Allen's a good coach. He's got none of his own people. You've got more former Clemson players there, guys that have been on the staff for 5-8 years, and Tom Allen's there. Okay, yeah, I'm the defensive coordinator, but I don't have any of my own people. You got Riley in there. What has Riley ever actually done other than be Lincoln Riley's brother? He was at SMU. He was at TCU. He followed Sonny Dykes around. Well, it's still Sonny Dykes' offense. And then he comes to Clemson. He's here for 2 years. Klubnik hasn't gotten better. The offense has gotten worse. Garrett Riley, this is you. Dabo needs to get rid of you, but he doesn't have any other coaches on his staff that have experience calling plays. He doesn't have anybody else he can turn to, so he's stuck with Riley for the rest of this year because who else is going to call the plays? This is a joke of a program right now. It's an embarrassment, and Dabo, it's on you. Sorry, you're getting paid a lot of money to be the top guy, and you continue to fail addressing the issues with your program, and you continue to fail to adjust to 2025 football, NIL, the portal. You just finally brought in some portal players this year. Dabo, you got to get with it or get out.
The further we get away from their glory years, the more obvious it becomes that Venables was the straw that stirred the drink around there.
You got Venables, and then you got generational quarterback talent with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. If you don't have an elite defensive coordinator like Venables and generational talent, Dabo, you may as well be Bobo the clown. Like, you're nothing. Texas Tech, Utah. Texas Tech won this game 34-10. This game was close until about halfway into the fourth quarter. It was 13-10. Then Tech scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth to make this a decisive win. There were 4 turnovers in the first half, 2 each. Utah added 2 more turnovers in the second half. The third quarter was nothing but punts, which then we got into that fourth quarter and it was really close. Texas Tech had 8 false start penalties and really struggled with the crowd noise. I thought when Baron Morton went out, this was going to be Utah's opportunity to really step up on defense. But the Texas Tech backup quarterback, Will Hammond, came in and went 13 for 16 for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns and led them to the win. The MVP of this game was the Texas Tech defensive coordinator, Shiel Wood. He had the plan in place to put the clamps on Devin Dampier, and it was impressive. Watch out for him in this offseason as a possible name on the rise. He's in his 5th school in 5 years, and he's been climbing all the way. Every year he's been a defensive coordinator, started out as a DC at Army, went to Troy, went to Tulane, last year at Houston, and now at Texas Tech. So 5 schools in 5 years, but he keeps getting better jobs, bigger jobs, more opportunities. He's a name to watch to get a head coaching job in this offseason. What did you see in the Texas Tech-Utah game?
It was a little surprising because I had the over in this game, and they weren't even close. A lot of people talk about the early start because it was a noon start Eastern time, but they're playing on Utah, so it was a 10 a.m. start. I don't think that really matters because it's an early start for the defense too, right? Everybody's the same, but it was a sleepy kind of game in the first half. Utah held Tech's offense, which we know scores a ton of points, at least against the smaller teams. Held them down for a little while. Will Hammond came in and looked great, which is a sign of a healthy program when your backup quarterback can be slotted in and just you can run the same offense. But Texas Tech got its rhythm. It got going eventually. Utah never did. I don't think that Utah has explosive players. Outside of Dampier, I mean, they had 263 yards of total offense, 3.8 yards per play, 4 of 14 on third down. Typically, Utah wins those kind of games with physicality, and it just wasn't the case. Credit Texas Tech, Lee Hunter, bringing a guy like that in on the roster. They don't usually have those guys on Texas Tech. So Texas Tech ascending, Utah going the other way. Wasn't the most exciting game, but Texas Tech handled them, I think, from pretty much beginning to end.
Yeah, Tech impressed me a lot. I was disappointed with Utah and how they looked. I expected a little bit more out of them. I expected the Utah offensive line to really control the game and get the running game going for Utah, and that never really happened. Again, I go back to Shiel Wood from Texas Tech, their defensive coordinator. He had the right game plan in place, and his players, to their credit, executed it. Moving on, we've got Oklahoma 24, Auburn 17. Auburn came into this game averaging 242 yards rushing, and the Sooners held them to 67 yards, in large part to 9 sacks. Jackson Arnold was credited with 20 carries for negative 11 yards. The 9 sacks set an Oklahoma school record. Heisman frontrunner John Mateer was consistent, throwing for 271 yards, added 29 yards on the ground for an even 300 total, and had a touchdown both passing and rushing. Late in the fourth quarter, after Oklahoma went up 22-17, Auburn got the ball back, and after picking up a first down, they had 2 penalties, making it 2nd and 25. They followed that up with a sack and then a sack for a safety, and that was the end of the game. Basically, Oklahoma got the ball back and just ran it out. Auburn was in this the whole way. I think OU is a really good team. And so for me, the way Auburn played and kept it so tight on the road really showed well for this Auburn program. The center D-line was just too strong, especially when it mattered most.
Yeah, 100%. I agree that it was a good showing for Auburn. Kind of another one of those games that there just weren't a lot of fireworks. It was entertaining in the sense that it was tight late in the fourth quarter. Both teams fighting hard. It was really overall a fun game to watch, even though there weren't a lot of offensive fireworks. When I say not a lot of offensive fireworks, I mean hardly any. It makes me start to question how good OU's offense is. We know John Mateer is good, but when your quarterback every game is your leading rusher, and he's not like Lamar Jackson, right? John Mateer is a good player and he can run, but he's not a read option quarterback like a Castellanos or someone like that who you build the offense to run him. I don't know. I think Oklahoma has some questions in terms of running the ball. If they can't run the ball against SEC defenses in the future, they're gonna struggle to score even 24 points and even get 303 yards. So their defense, we talked about Venables before. Their defense showed well and won the game for them. I don't know. I came away with questions about OU's offense. Hats off to DJ Durkin and the Auburn defense. But all that said, still a good win for not to take anything away from it. Like, good wins are good wins.
That falls into our unofficial segment. I've got questions, and we'll file Oklahoma away to that. I've got questions about them.
They're on the brink, right? They're on the border. If this continues where they can't run the ball and Mateer is their leading rusher every game, we will have big questions for them.
I think the game I was probably most excited to watch on Saturday was Illinois-Indiana. I thought this game had an even matchup. I thought the game should have been a pick'em. I was so excited to watch this game, and Indiana won 63-10. Both offenses had been really strong all season. I thought the Illinois defense was a little bit stronger, and man, was I wrong. Third down efficiency for Illinois, 1 out of 10. Indiana, 8 for 11. Indiana's defense generated 7 sacks and took away the ground game completely. Illinois had 20 carries for 2 yards because of those sacks. On the other side, Indiana rushed for 312 yards. It wasn't just on the ground. Fernando Mendoza went 21 of 23 for 267 yards and 5 touchdowns. The Hoosiers started scoring with D'Angelo Pons with a blocked punt that he scooped and scored for a touchdown. This was utter domination in all 3 phases of the game. I don't have anything to say about Illinois. They don't deserve to be talked about today. This is all Indiana, and it's Indiana's day.
1,000%. I mean, this was a beating. FSU, who's a top 10 team, just beat Kent State 66-10. Indiana beat a ranked Illinois team 63-10 in the biggest game of the season. I mentioned early in the year that when Curt Cignetti gets a team down, he likes to just keep them down. And that's what happened in this game. He was not letting off the gas, and they were going to score. Fernando Mendoza, introduce yourself to everyone who didn't watch ACC football last year. But unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable showing by Indiana. Now, the rap on Indiana, if I'm going to be a little negative, which I shouldn't after a game like that, but the rap on Indiana is they can always beat the middle to poor teams and can't beat the upper echelon. So can they get a win this year against one of the big 3 in the Big Ten?
I think they can. I think they've got enough, and they've been around now. Last year it was new to them. They've done it before. They faced these teams, and you've been really big on Cignetti. I'm on the bandwagon. This is a really good program that he's built, that he brought in. He's in, I think, year 2 from James Madison. He is the real deal. Indiana is a legit team. Illinois was a top 10 team that got embarrassed. So yeah, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, you need to look out. Indiana can get you.
We'll see. I have to see it to believe it. But, hey, I'm a Cignetti fan. If they play like they did last night, they can beat anybody, I would think.
When we look at our game balls for the week, I could easily go with TCU's Josh Hoover, who threw for 379 yards and 5 touchdowns. But it was his wide receiver, Eric McAlister, who pulled in 8 catches for 254 yards and 3 of those touchdowns. You, sir, get a game ball. My other game ball is going to be a shared game ball by the following people: Buda Williams, Rod Ojong, Pat Kuntz, Ola Adams, Bryant Haynes, Chandler Whitmere, John Miller, Bob Bosted, Grant Kane, Mike Shanahan. And if you don't know where I'm going yet, these are all the coaches on Curt Cignetti's staff. The Indiana coaches in all phases of the game had the best game plan, offense, defense, and special teams in a ranked versus ranked game that I have seen this year. The Indiana entire coaching staff gets a game ball. AV, you got any game balls to hand out?
I got one, and it comes from Friday night. It's my man, Caden Weegan, the best return man in the country, who takes the opening kickoff to the house for Iowa, sets the tone there. Iowa gets a big win. He almost housed a punt return to end the half. It's kind of a misplay because he should have went out of bounds with 1 second left, and he cut it back in, and they didn't get any points out of it. But it was like a 50-yard return down to the 10. He's, in my opinion, clearly the best return man in the country. He showed it Friday night, so throw some love on that guy.
On Friday, we're going to preview the LSU at Ole Miss game, Alabama at Georgia, and to help us preview Oregon at Penn State, we've got Penn State former All-American and Miami Dolphin great OJ McDuffie will be joining us. Looking forward to 3 monster matchups this coming weekend. Before we get out of here, we've got the Complete BS Top 25. At number 25, I've got Illinois. 24, Arizona State. 23, Tennessee. 22, Group of 5 representative, the Memphis Tigers. 21, Southern Cal. 20, Missouri. 19, Michigan. 18, Vanderbilt. 17, BYU. Alabama's at 16, Georgia Tech 15, Iowa State 14, 13 is Texas, 12 is Texas A&M, 11 Ole Miss. The best team in Texas is number 10, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. 9, Indiana jumping all the way up for me after their blowout win. 8, Oklahoma. Florida State at 7. 6, Georgia. 5, LSU. 4 is Penn State. 3 Miami, 2 Oregon, and 1 Ohio State. Nothing changed for me in the top 8 this week. A lot of teams were off. Those that did had convincing wins. I left the top 8 as is.
Like it. Looking forward to some of those top 25 teams playing each other this coming weekend. We have some good games coming up this weekend.
Absolutely. And if you're a golf fan too, you've got the Ryder Cup, so lots of sports going on next weekend. You can follow Complete BS Pod on X and Instagram. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you later, Couch Coach Nation.
Thanks for listening to Complete BS. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us online. And tell us what you think of this episode. Use hashtag CouchCoachNation, and let's keep the conversation going.